The secret to staying wealthy: there are a million ways to get rich. You can launch a trendy startup, strike it lucky in the stock market, or build a massive audience online. But while the world is absolutely obsessed with teaching you how to make money, almost nobody talks about the much harder part: how to keep it. This is Chapter 5 of the Psychology of Money, and it outlines a brutal truth. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two entirely different skills. Getting money requires taking big risks, being wildly optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But keeping money requires the exact opposite. It requires humility, a little bit of healthy paranoia, and an acceptance that some of your success was just pure luck. If you want to survive the financial game, you have to understand that the ultimate goal isn't just growth, it is survival. The tale of 2 millions. To understand why this matters, let's look at two investors whose paths crossed during the historic market crash of October 1929. First, meet Jesse Livermore. He was the greatest stock trader of his generation. By the age of 30, he was worth the inflation-adjusted equivalent of $100 million. When the Great Depression hit and wiped out a third of the stock market in a single week, Jesse didn't lose. In fact, he had shorted the market, betting that stocks would decline. In just one day, Jesse made the modern equivalent of over $3 billion, turning him into one of the richest men alive. While his family celebrated their unfathomable success, another man, a multimillionaire real estate developer named Abraham Germansky, walked the streets of New York in total desperation. He had bet heavily on the surging stock market and lost every single penny. Germansky disappeared that week, completely ruined. But fast forward just 4 years and the story takes a shocking turn. Overjoyed by his massive win, Jesse Livermore overflowed with confidence. He made larger and larger bets, got in way over his head with debt, and eventually lost everything in the stock market. In 1933, he vanished for 2 days, and a few years later, broke and ashamed, he took his own life. The timing was different, but Germansky and Livermore shared the exact same tragic flaw. They were brilliant at getting wealthy, but absolutely terrible at staying wealthy. The power of the survival mindset: if you had to summarize financial success in a single word, that word would be survival. Think about it. 40% of companies that become successful enough to be publicly traded lose effectively all of their value over time. The Forbes 400 list of the richest individuals sees a 20% turnover every single decade for reasons that have nothing to do with death. Capitalism is incredibly hard. Michael Moritz, the billionaire head of Sequoia Capital, was once asked why his firm had survived and prospered for over 4 decades when so many others failed. His answer was simple: "I think we've always been afraid of going out of business." He explained that you can never afford to rest on your laurels or assume that yesterday's good fortune translates into tomorrow's success. Look at Warren Buffett. We spend years trying to figure out his secrets, how he picks companies or reads the markets. But his real secret is simply that he stuck around. He didn't get carried away with debt, he didn't panic and sell during the 14 recessions he lived through, and he never burned himself out. He survived, and survival gave him longevity, which let the math of compounding work its absolute magic. The 3 rules of being unbreakable: applying this survival mindset to your own life comes down to appreciating 3 core things. First, more than you want big returns, you must want to be financially unbreakable. When you are unbreakable, you can stick around long enough for compounding to work its wonders. This means holding on to cash even when the market is booming and everyone else is getting rich. It feels conservative, but that cash prevents you from having to sell your assets during a market crash, saving you from total ruin. Second, remember that while planning is important, the most crucial part of any plan is to plan on the plan not going according to plan. The real world is full of economic landmines, pandemics, and market crashes. A good financial plan doesn't pretend these unknowns don't exist. It embraces them by building in a wide margin of safety. Third, you need a barbelled personality. This means you must be incredibly optimistic about the long-term future, but deeply paranoid about the short-term obstacles that could prevent you from getting there. Over the last 170 years, the US economy grew 20-fold, yet that same period saw over 1 million soldiers die in major wars, 33 recessions, and 99% of created companies go out of business. Growth happens in the face of constant adversity. Conclusion and takeaway: Jesse Livermore learned this lesson the hard way. He associated the good times with his own genius, and it gave him what he later called a swelled head. He realized too late that an inflated ego is an expensive disease in the world of investing. So as you build your own financial future, remember that getting money is just the first step. If you want to keep it, stay humble, protect your downside, and focus on staying in the game. Because in the end, it's not about making a few perfect decisions, It is about consistently not screwing up.